Political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe joins us now in the studio to discuss this further. Very good morning to you, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, looking at the figures, how many votes the president actually needs to stay in office, how many votes the opposition is counting on from the ANC MPs turning on the ANC. What do you see playing out this afternoon?
Well, I think with the SSCP throwing its hat in support of the president, what it does, it gives a possibility of this motion failing. And if the party that is called for the president to step down understands that this is also about an attack on the ANC, it is possible that their argument may hold sway also among members of the ANC who may not like the president, but would see this as a protection of the ANC. Because that, as Musime Mane had correctly indicated, that there is a bigger agenda. President Zuma is simply a stepping stone to a bigger agenda, which is about defeating the ANC. And the SSCP has said as much, despite all the noise that it has always created about the president stepping down. It also understands that this is about the collapse of the ANC government. And if the ANC government collapses or the ANC collapses, the alliance collapse. So they also have an interest in the sustenance. So what they are seeing here is simply an attack on the ANC beyond simply having to ask the president to step down. And most importantly, they make a distinction in that they say the president, the ANC must recall its president because they see him as a liability. But at the same time, they are also saying, in doing so, you must not destroy the ANC. But the ANC, on the other hand, says we have actually gone through this process before. And the process was about the removal of the former president, Thabo Mbeki, and the mayhem it caused within the ANC. Actually, the ANC has not recovered as a result of that. And there you also have a president who was not enjoying any more support within the ANC. But this current one is a president who still remains the president of the ANC, is a president who still commands a form of support and following within a number of provinces. So if somebody who was no longer a president and who was not commanding support on the ground is ejected, and it creates the type of trauma in the ANC, you can imagine what this would mean for the ANC. But most importantly, it was only Holomesa who has tried to de-link the motion of no confidence with the downfall of the party. But others have been very clear about what the intentions are.
There is a bigger picture clearly there. Now, with the SACP actually coming out in support of the ANC as a whole, as opposed to supporting President Jacob Zuma, do you think that perhaps some of the SACP MPs might vote with their conscience and not along the party lines, especially because they're not protected through the secret ballot?
Well, I mean, this is a real test. I think for me, the real test is that members of the ANC have always claimed that they are tried and tested. And also, I'm also one of those who does not believe that the expression of conscience is something that you express in dark corners. I think for me, I align myself with Mogoeng when he says, when you act according to your conscience, that also requires an element of courage. That where there are no reprisals, there's really nothing courageous. So even those members who will be voting with their conscience, the question is that why couldn't they take a position that is open? But I find the celebration of secrecy quite an amazing one. When you have a country that the people have gone marching against the secrecy bill because they don't like secrets. They've made the case about how ours is an open and transparent society. But also, what also has happened is that there's been a lot of money that has flown in to try to disrupt this democracy. And Mogoeng had raised the issue that the problem with the dark corners is that people can be bought. And he said not only people, but even judges can be bought. So what more about the ordinary MPs? So that the speaker has decided, but we'll see how it goes. So, but for me, it's a real test of members of the ANC, whether they hate the president so much that they would align themselves with an agenda of the opposition. Well, the opposition has also played it very well in terms of the narrative. While the ANC was busy, concerned with its own battles, internal battles. It is clear from the numbers and the marches that we see today that the opposition have been mobilizing. And it was Holomisa who says, no, they started mobilizing around this as early as April. So it's not something that they started now. It's
They've
only
been
that
preparing for it
the ANC has
along.
been sleeping. And the decision by the speaker was to give them a gift. So we'll see how it goes.
And on the issue of secrecy, Professor, what do you think of the double speak that the opposition parties seem to have? I mean, they want to vote out the president through a secret ballot, but when their own councillors, for example, vote according to secret ballot, they get put through lie detector tests, you know, so it's one of those do as I say, but not as I do situations.
But those are some of the issues that the ANC in caucus must address. That why do we allow ourselves to be put in a position when people tell us about what we should do while they will not do that to their own. And it's a same position that some members of the ANC are saying. If we want to remove our leader, we elected that leader, it should be our responsibility to remove that leader. It is not a responsibility that you give to other people. But it appears that some members of the ANC would rather see the back of Jacob Zuma, even if it may lead to the collapse of the ANC. They dislike him so much that whatever is left of the ANC is immaterial to them.
Now, the president has actually survived 7 motions of no confidence before today's one. If he happens to survive this one, do you think the opposition will push for another motion before the December elective conference, or will they just let it slide?
I think they will continue to do that. I mean, and of course, somehow the courts have made that possible. So they would not even need any reason to do so. But I also think that perhaps after this one, if he survives, as most people expect that he'll survive, they'll have to give up on these attempts. They will have tried everything. What will be left for them is to try other measures. They've tried to enlist the courts said no. They enlisted the speaker said yes. So it's up to them.
And if perhaps this motion actually works in the favor of the opposition, what happens to the ANC? What does it mean for the country's economy?
Well, we'll be moving into a very uncertain space. And in as much as businesses are very excited about the possibility of President Zuma's downfall, the challenge will be who's going to replace him. I mean, he will be replaced. I don't think the ANC will go to elections right now. The ANC is too, it needs to recover from the setbacks that it has suffered before they could actually go into elections. But they'll have to select somebody amongst themselves. And they might ask the deputy president, but given the dynamics in the ANC, they might ask somebody who might appear to be less interested in the position and say, let's not give a contender to the position an advantage. So those are some of the possibilities that may come.
And in the event that the president does win, which the numbers show is possibly more likely, do you think that this will show that ANC can stand united in despite of the internal factions?
It will make a very interesting statement about members of the ANC, and but it will not be without them having to explain themselves, because what they have done, they've lost the narrative or commanding the narrative in society. So people have reduced this as simply a vote against the president to being a vote against corruption. But that is simply an entry point, and the ANC has not managed to deal with it because it has its own internal problems. I mean, look, we are here because the ANC has not been able to get its house in order. If the ANC was united and its house was in order, we wouldn't be talking this language, we wouldn't be speculating. The issues would be very clear-cut.
Well, thank you so much for your analysis and for joining us here on the ground report. That was Professor Sipho Seepe giving us his analysis of what to expect at the motion of no confidence taking place later on this afternoon. Of course, we have our reporters on the ground in Cape Town, and we'll keep you posted on that as well as the marches taking place across the country.